to CavsHQ presented by Sherwin-Williams. Thank you for joining us on Fox Sports Ohio and the Cavaliers Radio Network. Now, here are your hosts, John Michael and Rafa Haernandez-Brito.
Welcome to another edition of CavsHQ, coming to you from the depths of Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. Once again, great to have everybody with us. Great to be back in the building. John and Rafa, good to see you.
Good to see you, and good to see that our guys are starting to get healthy and a couple of days off that we weren't expecting. Blessing in disguise, I believe.
Well, right. I mean, the Cavs had the 2 games postponed in D.C., and while you never want games postponed, maybe couldn't have happened at a better time. For a Cavs team that, since the beginning of the season, has dealt with the health issues. They needed some bodies back, so the Cavs get 5 days between games, not only get a couple of players back healthy, but are part of the trade that reverberated around the NBA, the James Harden deal, and the Cavaliers welcomed 2 new players into the mix, Jarrett Allen and Taurean Prince.
You know, in this day and age of social media and iPhones and all kinds of stuff, the first thing you do when you wake up, at least in my case, is look at the phone, see what kind of messages I have left overnight, what kind of notifications, and then I see James Harden finally traded. I open it up, and at the end it says, you know, he's doing this, Houston gets this, and Cleveland Cavaliers will get Jarrett Allen and Taurean Prince. I'm like, oh, my God. That was the first reaction. The second is, why did we give up for these 2 gems? And everything just worked out perfect. Kobe Altman just hit it out of the park there.
It turned into Dante Exum, went in the other direction.
Correct.
The Cavs gave up a first-round pick. Now, that's Milwaukee's pick, and considering where people think
and
Milwaukee's
Giannis being resigned.
Considering where Milwaukee's going to finish, that likely will be somewhere between 26 and 30 and a second-round pick as well for somebody that, you know, they've had their eye on for a long, long time, and Jarrett Allen, another guy who can potentially be an important part of 3-and-D piece for this team.
And the best part about it, 2 Texas guys, and I know at least one of them is a fan of speaking Spanish. I don't know how good his Spanish is yet, but the Fro, I call him Patrulla Juvenil, which is Mod Squad. Do you remember that show? Or you too young for that show?
A little bit.
Okay. Well, he is a big fan of the Spanish language, and actually had a message in Spanish during the bubble in the back of his jersey. Si se puede. Yes, we can. So, hey, welcome to Cleveland.
He seemed excited to be joining you potentially on the Spanish side, pre-game and post-game.
And post-game.
Yeah, for all 72 or the remaining games this season. A lot obviously going on. For those who know this show, we don't only talk about the Cavs. We talk about Cleveland sports. What a run it was for the Cleveland Browns. You know, right now still disappointing, still a little bit of a heartache. But when you consider what, you know, from where this franchise has come, we're not talking about where this franchise has come decades and decades ago. We're talking about just a couple of seasons ago. What a season. Again, it doesn't feel real good right now. But to join us in the first half of the show, none other than Pro Bowler Joe Thomas, multiple-time Pro Bowler, his whole career Pro Bowler. Joe Thomas.
Who has a lot to say nowadays.
Has a lot to say and says it quite well. He's come over to the dark side. He's joined the broadcasting group. So it's always great to catch up with Joe. He's a friend of the show. And I'm just excited to hear his perspective on what a season like this means for that organization.
I'm sure he's thrilled like everybody else is, and also, like you mentioned, a little aching right now because of what. But if you know football and if you know sports, you know that in order to make it all the way, you rarely do it on your first try. There is these bumps around the road that help you learn and help you get better. And I think when you think about the future of the Browns with the 2 running backs they have, with the great offensive line, with Baker Mayfield really growing in strides this season, and then the defense has really done a good job. So you have to think that next year, still they're going to get a 3rd place schedule. So that might benefit them a little bit. And I just can't wait for next season.
I mean, again, for Joe, who never had the ability to have a season like that and then come into this upcoming season with all that momentum and knowing all that and being able to build like that, can't wait to hear from him. Second half of the show, Andre Knott, of course, the Indians, made headlines as well. You knew Frankie Lindor at some point likely was going to go. He does, along with Carlos Carrasco, goes to the Mets. We'll talk to Andre about all of that. Like I said, packed show coming up. It's Joe Thomas straight ahead. We're going to talk Browns right here on CavsHQ.
CavsHQ is brought to you by Sherwin-Williams, the official paint and coatings partner of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and by Huntington. If you need guidance on your money right now, talk to Huntington. Welcome.
We're back on CavsHQ, presented by Sherwin-Williams, John Michael, Rafa, Haernandez-Brito. A lot of Cavs talk coming later on in the show, but for now, it is the 10-time Pro Bowler. It's Joe Thomas. Excited to talk to him about what transpired over the last couple of months in the NFL here in Cleveland.
Not only a 10-time Pro Bowler, but professional broadcaster.
Yeah.
And an amazing one at that.
Yeah, you thought he was good at at playing left tackle. He's one heck of a broadcaster. Let's bring him in. It is Joe Thomas. Look at you, by the way. You're in an official sound booth there. Look at Mr. Broadcaster nowadays.
I'm in my sauna in the back garage here. No, I had to get some these sound panels behind me because I'm sitting in like my little office that's got wood on the walls and it's like an echo chamber. The first time I tried to do a Zoom meeting. So this is the new and improved sauna sound studio at the Thomas Estate.
Very nice. Hey, Joe, it's always great to see you. You're a friend of the show. We always appreciate when you come aboard. And we're so interested in your perspective. Can you articulate what a season like this means for the Browns organization, particularly considering where it came from, what it was like when you were out there on the field? It doesn't feel good right now. The loss and everything else doesn't taste good. But, boy, what a season. Can you fill us in?
Yeah, I think this is the rebirth of the Browns franchise. Yeah. The people that have been fans since the 50s and 60s and 70s remember all those great decades with so many great teams. And then the team left in the 90s. And since the team has come back, they only made the playoff one time, and they kind of backed into that game. But they never had the feel around the franchise and the team that we're back. Mm-hmm. We're officially back. This is a team that everybody in Northeast Ohio, all the Cleveland Browns fans, can be proud of it, and they can be optimistic that the direction is headed up. And this is a team that is built for sustained success for the future. And I think that's the one thing I'm kind of holding on to as I'm still dealing with like the bitterness of losing on Sunday, is that this team is well positioned for a lot of success in the future. And we're going to have a lot more of these fun playoff runs in the near future.
I think it was an amazing run by the Browns, considering everything that went on in the 2020 season, Joe. But the future is bright. There's no doubt about it. The running backs are amazing. The quarterback should be the one for many years to come. The defense is great. And the head coach. Talk to us a little bit about Mr. Stefanski and the job he did and how the guys came up and played for him in Pittsburgh. I mean, the whole story is just a great story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he brought a belief in his way of doing things with his very steady, detail-oriented approach to the game of football. And the players bought in. They're playing for him. And you could see that last week when he wasn't there, how important it was for those guys to come together, to beat the Steelers, to give Kevin an opportunity to go out and coach in a playoff game in his first season as a head coach. And he brought a great offense. And that, I think, when you talk about what do you want from your head coach, right? You want a head coach that's going to bring in a great offense, that's going to be able to have a connection with your quarterback, a la what we saw with Drew Brees and Sean Payton for all those years, Bill Belichick, Tom Brady. Like, that is the most important thing for the stability and the long-term success of a franchise. And I think anybody that watched the Browns this season realized that Kevin Stefanski and Baker Mayfield, that's a relationship that's built for a lot of success for a long time.
Joe, I'm curious about you. When you watch this all take place, I know you're excited and you're obviously rooting for the organization, but you're still in great shape. I mean, you've been there. You were in the trenches for over a decade. Does it gnaw at you a little bit? Is there still any itch in you that wants to get out there and be a part of what's going on right now?
Yeah, I'm totally a fan since the day that I retired. However, there has been a few moments, like when I was watching the game on Sunday, I actually got lucky enough to get some tickets, and I went to the game in Kansas City, and I was sitting there, and Jed Wills gets hurt like the first play of the game, and they bring in Kendall Lamb, and I'm telling the people I'm sitting near who are all Browns fans, like, hey, it's okay. Kendall Lamb, he's a very good tackle. He'll be just fine. He'll do a great job. Well, then Kendall goes down, and they bring in Blake Hands, who's only been there for 2 weeks. Yeah. And I had that moment for like 2 seconds where when you're a player as an offensive lineman, you're sitting on the sideline, you're kind of relaxing, and if the defense makes a big play like a turnover, you have this quick reaction where you turn around, you grab your helmet, and you run on the field because you're getting ready to like all of a sudden get ready and go. So you have this just all of a sudden energy just shoots through your body and you're ready to get out there. And I had that moment when I saw Kendall Lamb go down for like 2 seconds. I was ready to storm down the aisle in Arrowhead Stadium and get out of the field and grab a helmet and get going. And then I remembered, oh, you're broke down and out of shape. There's no chance that you'd be able to get out there and do it again.
Speaking of that, I don't want to say, I hope this question doesn't come out the wrong way, but you protected 20 starting quarterbacks in your 11 seasons as a professional player. You leave, and now the Browns have one quarterback this whole time. What's the deal with that?
Yeah, I got 20 guys hurt, apparently. Like if Baker would have been blocking.
That's where he was trying to go. Yeah, right. That's where he was trying to go. Hey, Joe, stick with us. We're going to be right back here on CavsHQ. We're back here on CavsHQ, presented by Sherwin-Williams, talking to first ballot Hall of Famer Joe Thomas. Take us through this, Joe. I mean, a lot has been made about the Dan Sorensen hit on Rashard Higgins and the fumble and everything else that goes out the back of the end zone. A number of people have expressed dissatisfaction with the rule, that's a touchback. Where do you come down on what you saw and how that all transpired?
I've been beating the drum that this fumbling into the end zone and out of bounds goes to the defense as a touchback as the worst rule in football for several years now. And so just to be clear, I'm not just biased against this rule because it hurt the Browns so much this past weekend,
right.
But to me, it just makes no sense that a fumble anywhere in the field that goes out of bounds goes back to the spot where the ball was fumbled. But somehow if you fumble and you're 1 inch into the end zone, now, even though the defense doesn't recover it, they're able to get the football. And I understand that there's an argument out there, well, the end zone is a special place, but basically you're just coming up with a completely arbitrary result of something that a lot of times the defense has no impact in the play. Like if you're running down and you reach for the end zone, we've seen this before where a guy just drops the ball as he's reaching for the pylon and it hits the pylon and now it's a touchback. So the defense didn't do anything and you're rewarding them with not only a turnover, but you're advancing the ball 20 yards towards your own goal line. And so I think also it discourages great athletic plays that we as fans, we want to see more of it. We want to see those guys diving and reaching towards the pylon, trying to score a touchdown. And when you have a rule that so significantly rewards the defense, what you're going to have to coach your players is when you get near the goal line, just put two hands on it and just do the fullback thing and just try to fall into the end zone. And I think that robs all of us NFL fans of the entertainment value of seeing those great athletic plays like Higgy was trying to make as he was going towards that pylon. He was trying to give his best effort. He was giving everything he had to try to get to the pylon, and he fumbles it. And I just think that the reward for the defense in that manner doesn't match the effort or the positive play that the defense made in that situation.
Let's take on the second part of that question. Do you like where the NFL is right now in terms of helmet-to-helmet hits? And that one's a little different. It's at the, he's diving, trying to make a play. Sorensen is near the end zone. But some of these plays where guys are defensive players are spinning off of blocks and then trying to get into a tackle and going helmet-to-helmet. Do you like where the rule is right now? And if not, what changes would you make?
I don't have any problems with the letter of the law, but I think what we have seen since the targeting rule has been put into place by the NFL is that in the NFL game, the bodies are moving too quickly and the impacts are happening so briefly that it's impossible for the human eye to consistently get those situations and those calls correctly. We've seen it so many times in the NFL where it kind of looks at full speed like targeting, but then when you slow it down, it's not.
Yeah.
Or in the case of the game this past weekend against Higgy was Sorensen clearly targeted and led with the crown of his helmet, hit Higgy, and forced the fumble, which should have been a targeting call. But when you watch it in real time, it happens so quickly, it's hard to see. But additionally, in that situation where Rashard Higgins is reaching for the pylon, the referee is looking for where the ball is, because he needs to figure out, is it going to be a touchback? Where's the ball? Does it cross the line? So he's not watching the defensive player and where he's striking the offensive player. And so what I've been kind of banging the drum on also has been the sky judge idea, which is something that the NFL has talked about a little bit, where there's this official who is watching maybe in New York, but he's watching all the camera angles, and he's able to call down onto the field in situations of targeting and the unnecessary roughness hits on a quarterback, because that's another area. The roughing the passer calls, I think, are mistaken way too many for penalties, and on the other side of it, they're not called in a lot of situations, and it's such a big moment in a game to give a 15-yard penalty for a roughing the passer and an automatic first down. I think it needs to be correctly called more consistently, and I think a sky judge would provide that opportunity for NFL referees to get those calls that are so important correct.
And that's where I have the issues with, not only with the NFL, but also with all the leagues. With, we have this great use of technology, Joe, and I know the NFL kind of fumbled it last season with the tryouts of the pass interference
stuff, right?
Calling it. But you just mentioned it. Why not, if we have all this technology and all these angles and all these different looks, and especially with the fact that we need to take care of the players with all the problems they've been having with concussions, like, why not be able to go to the tape, like you said, with another ref or somebody in New York make those calls, because it is important, especially in the playoffs, the way they have different rules in the overtime for the playoff games. I think they should implement something like that, because it was an important play.
Yeah.
At the moment it happened, and obviously in the result of the game. Where do you stand in terms of the instant replay and the technology in the game?
Well, I hate the slowdowns in the game. I hate when the referees are going under the hood constantly and reviewing plays. But why I like the idea of a sky judge is because they could be reviewing every play, or let's just say targeting and roughing the passer, like some of those safety violations that are really hard to get right in real time. They could be reviewing those from New York somewhere, like you mentioned, using technology, and the fan wouldn't even know because it wasn't stopping the play at all. All he would have to do is he could call down to the ref's ear and buzz him in if a flag should have been called, or if the ref throws a flag, let's say it's a roughing the passer, that same sky judge could quickly call into that ref's ear and say, you missed that call, it's not roughing the passer, and the ref could easily pick it up and say, no flag on the play, keep moving, and the game wouldn't be delayed whatsoever. And so I think that's the biggest benefit of a sky judge. Not only is it getting it right in those most critical of situations, because those situations like we saw with targeting on Sunday or the roughing the passers throughout the season, there's such big turning points in the game, you can't get them wrong. But also, you can do this without slowing the game down any further, which I don't think anybody wants to see.
Yeah, it's a great point. The NBA's done it as well. They buzz in on a 3 or a non-3. That call is made in Secaucus, New Jersey. They fire it down, and they'll fix the score, and no stoppage of play at all. Joe, before we let you go, we were laughing that you've come over to the dark side, the broadcasting side. And, we're curious from a player who had to sit there and answer a lot of questions, some of which I'm sure you weren't thrilled about throughout your career. And it's a little different. We're doing studio work. We're not, down there writing stories and asking questions. But making that transition for you, obviously you're doing a wonderful job. But what have you learned? Is there anything that you said, well, maybe it is a little bit harder on this broadcasting side, or something from being a player that you didn't perceive exactly the way it is as you've come over to doing some broadcasting now?
That's great. I think the number one thing that I learned is, especially in postgame, asking the right question to get an interesting response where a player might get into a story or actually open up outside of just giving you a cliche is so much more difficult than I thought, because, I was always used to being on the other side where we don't want to give any information, or, you don't want to elaborate too much. And so it's really difficult in a situation where a player is grumpy, especially like maybe they lost, to get them to open up and give you something that's entertaining and interesting for your audience.
How's the Tomahawk podcast doing? How's Mission Barbecue? I tried to get some of the 73 Glutch,
right?
It's sold out.
You have to wait till next season.
How's the podcast going, though?
Yeah, it's going great. Obviously, as a restaurant owner in the pandemic, things haven't been as great as usual. But the great thing about barbecue is it travels really well. It does a great job when it's heated up for leftovers. It's almost better after it's been sitting in its juices and its flavors for a little while. So our takeout business at Mission Barbecue has been off the charts. And the Tomahawk show, we didn't do much during the season because me and Hawk were so busy with our other stuff. Like Hawk is 10 times more busy than I am, and I feel like I'm busy. He's doing an Amazon show, and he works for NFL Network, and he does all sorts of crazy stuff. But we brought it back during the playoffs because it was just too big to not turn the mics on and have me and Hawk rap about the Cleveland Browns and talk poetically about how great the season has been.
Well, if you haven't tried Mission Barbecue, I tried the one in Parma. It's delicious, and like Joe said, it's great to get takeout, and then you can buy for like 2 days and leave with the barbecue. But before we go, I wanted to tell you, whenever you want to come catch a Cavs game, let us know. Let me know. We'd love you to be our guest here at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. We're having some amazing games. We got a whole healthy team coming up now, so we would love to have you as our guest here at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse.
I will absolutely take you up on that. Thank you so much for having me, guys, and go Cavs.
Yeah. You're the best, Joe. Thanks a bunch. We appreciate it. Keep up the good work. It's always fun.
Amazing guy.
I mean, we've had him on here since our first season on CavsHQ. Never disappoints, and now he's like I said, now he's over on our
My
side.
question is, how does he look healthier and better now that he's working with the barbecue
100 pounds
restaurant?
lighter. He's got to be 100 pounds lighter. I loved hearing him tell that story. He said it was nice finally not having to eat 15 pancakes every morning to stay that big. Heavy. He said, I loved it. I love not being able to eat anymore. You know,
I need some tips.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, thanks to Joe Thomas. We're going to talk more. We're going to talk about some Cavs. We're going to talk about the trades.
Yes.
We're going to talk about some of the new acquisitions. That's straight ahead right here on CavsHQ. The second half of CavsHQ on tap back here inside Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. News around the NBA last week, a blockbuster trade. James Harden was not particularly thrilled, apparently, with the way things were going in Houston. Came out after a ball game and said it's just not working. Shortly thereafter,
beyond repair,
moved to Brooklyn. In that deal, 4 teams, one of which was the Cavaliers, and the Cavaliers out of that deal get Jared Allen, get Taurean Prince. Jared Allen had been the object of the Cavs' affection, we find out, for some time prior to the deal.
And I think it's an amazing piece for the Cavs. We mentioned it briefly earlier. Just the fact of what we gave up. Obviously, we hate to see Dante Exum leave. He was having a really good season, and then before his injury, the pick you talked about, it's a pick that nobody expects to be anything better than a 25 and up because of what the Bucks should be able to do in the East, and a second-round pick, which is, I believe, the worst out of all the ones we have. So great job for getting another piece for the future, another 25-year-old guy who is now the oldest out of all the younger guys that we have here in our roster. And
you talking about Prince or you talking about Allen?
About Allen.
Allen's 22.
Jared Allen.
22. Yes.
But he's still older than all that 20 years.
Right.
I don't know if this happened to you, but Jared Allen is the opposing player that I have talked to the most before he came here. You know, we always talk about how he wears the same pair of shoes all season long, how he's always talking to the photographer, asking him questions about pictures, and it's a great kid, a great energy, happy to have him here. And I'm sure J.B. Bickerstaff and his staff are thrilled to have him and Prince because they're going to be able to do some great things with them.
And what did you hear time and time again during the introduction of Jared Allen was he knows his role. And that's critical. You know, he knows his role. He only shoots right around the basket. His field goal percentage is through the roof every season, blocks a ton of shots. I mean, that's what Brooklyn did. You know, they sunk Jared Allen back. let you take the mid-range shot, let the other guys go out around the perimeter and try to coax you into mid-range shots. That's what they did, for seasons and seasons when Jared came into this league. So the Cavs are thrilled to have him around. Allen was drafted by Brooklyn 22nd overall in 2017 after one season at Texas, just like Tristan Thompson. Played 234 games starting 180. As for Taurean Prince, now he started his career in Atlanta, was traded for Allen Crabbe, came over to Brooklyn, played there last season, started there this season as well. He has knocked down 150 or more threes in each of his last 3 seasons, averaging right around 190 threes per season during that stretch. So you're talking about a guy who shapes up to be a 3-and-D type player. You spread that floor, you got another guy out there who can hit the long ball.
And a little bigger, too, that he can actually guard the 4. And you mentioned his threes. He's grown a lot. And I think out of the two of them, he's the one that can actually help Jared Allen deal with this nature of the beast, which is the trade. Because remember, he was drafted and traded like less than a month later in that trade with George Hill when Indiana sent him out. So he went to Atlanta. Now he then he went to Brooklyn. Now he comes here. So I think he's a what you can consider already a veteran and a guy that has been able to change his game according to what he's been told is needed of him. So I think that's great for the Cavaliers. Another guy shooting the 3, another guy that can actually play defense and actually take pride on playing defense.
How about more size? I mean, the Cavs, you look at the last couple of seasons, there was relatively little size at all. And suddenly now Jared Allen in the mix. You have that wing size with Taurean Prince. So good to see. And the Cavs, we mentioned it, the 2 games that took place over MLK weekend were scheduled to take place in D.C. were postponed. Health and safety protocols kept the Wizards out of a number of games. And so the Cavs got a nice break. Got 5 days in between, players coming back into the lineup. They've been waiting for their starting backcourt to return in Darius Garland and Colin Sexton. The Cavs also hoping to get Dylan Windler back shortly. He had been injured in the first game of the season. And I was talking to some of the front office. And the Cavs endured a stretch where they had no natural point guards healthy. None. I mean, they started the season Garland, Exum, Dellavedova, 1, 2, and 3. That was your depth chart. Nobody there. Colin Sexton, who had played point guard previously, he was out. Damian Dotson was the man who stepped in. He filled that void. And talking to somebody in the front office who said, I shudder to think where this team would be if Damian Dotson wasn't there. Yeah. And for that handful of games, playing on a bum ankle. Remember, he rolled his ankle the same game that Colin Sexton was injured. Playing some nights 40 minutes a night, dishing the basketball, position at point guard. He hadn't played since high school, but he's out there just keeping it moving. And the Cavaliers were able to navigate that tough stretch, end up 6-7 coming into that break that they got from those 2 postponements.
And out of all that, John, because you just mentioned, we always comment about how we love his attitude and we love his personality. We love the way his approach. Out of all that, you get this beautiful problem now that J.B. Bickerstaff has in his hands, because he's kind of forced to find a way to put in Dotson into this rotation now that everybody's healthy. Lamar Stevens played some amazing minutes as well. It is great to see guys that have taken advantage of that opportunity, and the fact that you can tell that JB's message is being heard and is being executed. And I think that just says wonderful things for the future of this franchise.
More CavsHQ right after this. Andre Knott. We're going to talk more Browns. We're going to talk a little Indians as well. That's straight ahead. The new City Edition look with the Cleveland Cavaliers. We're back here on CavsHQ. John Michael Rafa, Haernandez-Brito, talking Cavs basketball. We talked little Browns football with Joe Thomas in the first half. And good friend Andre Knott will be joining us. Does such a great job on the Indians broadcast. Also, the host of Browns Red Zones. We'll talk a little bit of Browns, but mostly Indians. Always good to catch up with Andre.
It's always good to find out what's going on, in the inside of our friends.
Andre Knott, yes.
Indians, Bartlett Giamatti, the ex-commissioner of baseball, used to say, you had a quote that said that baseball was the cruelest sport because it will keep us happy during the spring, and once the cold comes in, leaves us, and then to come back again. So every time we talk baseball, I always love the fact that the nice weather is coming, in spring training. Pitchers and catchers are going to report in less than a month.
Only a couple of weeks away.
Bring it on.
You just quoted Bart Giamatti on CavsHQ. And with that, a man who needs no introduction, it is Andre Knott. Andre, good to see you, my friend.
Good. I didn't have that on my bingo card. We were talking about Bart Giamatti. You already beat me to the depth of baseball talk.
He's going Kennesaw Mountain Landis here in only moments. So hold on to your hat. Hey, Andre, we talked to Joe Thomas in the first half of the show. I want to talk mostly Indians, but what was your reaction to, and again, it stings right now, but to what this team put together this season and to what this Browns organization has to look forward to next year?
Oh, man. I mean, with the year that we had in 2020, boys, I mean, and for what Northeast Ohio has gone through, I just thought it was awesome that team, as I told someone that worked the Indians, we've all been through the ups and downs of winning and losing. And my heart goes out to those guys in Berea. Rafa, I worked over there. I did sideline for 6 years, and I know all the grinders. You guys know what it's like. Our job is to paint the picture on game day, but there are so many people behind us that work behind, the doors, and no one gets pictures of them, and no one talks about them, and they're working on Thanksgiving and Christmas. I was just happy for those people in the organization, the people that I know that, that are selling the tickets and doing all that stuff. I thought it was awesome for the city and for those that we don't really talk about that work in Berea and try to make that team the best that they can.
Yeah, well said.
I came to Cleveland. I was adopted by Cleveland in 2014, and I guess we were all busy with the championship run that the Cavs were having, and I had never felt the impact that the Browns doing great has in the city, and it was so amazing to see it this year, just to see the energy around the city about the Browns doing great, and I'm sure you felt it. Andrew, because you around all three major sports here, but I think that's the most amazing thing: the fact that the city you needed that to bounce back from all the bad things that have been going on in this 2020.
Yeah, Rafa, I think it was dead on. I remember the Thursday night game. We were doing a baseball game downtown, and they were playing Thursday night against the Bengals, and we were kind of like brokenhearted because they couldn't fill the stadium. We're kind of all going through that. But I remember as we got down to the studio, you had people walking around and they're woofing. I'm happy for them, man, because I mean, you guys know what it's like to travel. I had friends I haven't talked to since college at Kent State. Like texting me and emailing me going, man, when we can, we got to go to a Browns game. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And shout out to the Buffalo Bills. I take them as our Great Lakes brothers. They've gone through it as well. I'm happy for them too. It's time for the NFL to get back to the grimy of the Lake Erieness of football. I like that.
AFC North is better when the Browns are good.
Must be the water.
AFC is better when the Browns and the Bills are good. Hey, let's talk. You mentioned the Indians, right? I mean, we were all kind of hoping, and everybody knew it was going to happen at some point, but sort of hoping that somehow Frankie Lindor would remain an Indian. He and Carlos Carrasco, of course, are traded to the Mets. What's your perspective on the trade, Andre, as that came down a couple of days ago?
Yeah, you said it kind of, I've equaled it to, we know we have to pay taxes every year, and it doesn't feel good when you do it. It's like, even though I know it's coming, April 15th, whatever the date, but you know it's coming. And I kind of felt that way with Frankie. And it's, and trust me, it's hard. Growing up here in Northeast Ohio, this has been a part of the story with the Cleveland Indians. Unfortunately, for me, it was Manny Ramirez. He was my favorite hitter. He was he tried to emulate the swing and how he finished off and everything else for me. And I was in the teenage years at the time in the 90s when he left. And I guess as a father now to two young ones, I kind of had to tell my kids, when this happened, I was like, well, welcome to being a Cleveland Indians fan. It's unfortunate. My daughter has, she's 8. She's, has a Frankie Lindor bobblehead. That's the only one that she took care of that's not broken in my household. She had it up in her bedroom. My wife, and so I'm on the press conference call with Chris Antonetti, and my wife texts me from the room over because, Cookie was in the deal. Well, Cookie was my son's favorite player too. And it's just like, she's like, do I tell him or can I wait till you're done with this call and you tell him? And I'm like, so I understand. I guess I sell that part of it first because I guess what I'm saying is I understand the emotional tie to the city both of those guys bring. They're both great men. They both put great amounts of their pride back into our city. Cookie was so great at taking care of kids and going to the hospital and just being just a great person first and foremost. And Frankie's same. But the Indians as an organization, they have to move forward. This is part of where baseball is at. And as I've told a couple people, Raf, I go, I know people want to blame ownership or blame this person, but maybe we can go back to Bart Giamatti. Don't hate the player, hate the game. This is how Major League Baseball is set up. I don't think there's many cities that can keep a Francisco Lindor. And let's be honest. The Indians drafted him in the first round. They cultivated the kid. They brought him along. They got to a World Series. It's not the Indians' fault per se that they can't keep him, because I could name you guys probably about 22 other teams that would run into a problem. So I'm asking Major League Baseball, fix this, because it's not fair to cities like Cleveland.
And that's what I was saying to John earlier on the show, that I think this is more on baseball than anybody else or the small markets. If he had gone to the Yankees, it would have been a different story. Maybe I would agree with it more.
Stop
but
it.
It is the nature of the beast, Dre, and we know it is baseball, and until they do something about it, it's going to continue happening. But for the Indians, I think it's time to look at what they have right now in the young arms, young players, and what should the fans be looking forward to here going forward for the Indians?
I think you hit on it perfectly, Raf. I get it. There's some frustration right now. Be mad. I mean, that's part of it. No one wants to lose a face of baseball. No one wants to lose the face of your franchise. But the beautiful thing is they still have Jose Ramirez, who was number 2 in the MVP race. He was number 3 2 years before that. He's one of the top players in baseball. You still have him in the middle of your lineup. You have the Shane Bieber, the Cy Young Award winner. The one thing you got to give the Indians credit, and look, this isn't putting my check to say it, is they've done a great job in cultivating talent and finding talent and bringing it along, because they know that's how they survive, right? I mean, you guys, as I watch Cavaliers games right now, and I'm being dead honest, I'm enjoying seeing kind of that new exuberance, that new youth. Larry Nance kind of bringing these guys together and watching these guys come together. And I think when you look at like a Shane Bieber, and you think about Tristan McKenzie, who got us all kind of, going last year, the Indians have done a great job of cultivating pitching and bringing pitching along. So who's next? That's where I look forward to spring training. They're going to have a chance for a lot of kids to open some eyes. And I know that they haven't done certain things because they want guys like Daniel Johnson, who you're going to get to know well. His nickname is the Jet. They want him to become one of the outfielders that we get to know. Nolan Jones, who's one of the top third basemen in all of baseball in the minors. They're looking at him in the outfield now to get his clock kind of going. So, yes, it's sad today when the snow's on the ground. But as you said, Raf, hopefully by April 1st, it's still going to be a little chilly, and I may have to wear a couple double goose bats. But hopefully baseball will be coming, and we'll have some new youth to kind of give the Cleveland area to enjoy.
I have to tell you that the first thing I did after the trade went down is I texted Bebo and said, you're the second highest player now in the Indians organization. So.
I told him that too. Yeah. I go, hey man, you got to carry a bigger stick, man. You're up there high now, brother.
Pressure's rising. Pressure's rising. Andre, always great seeing you. Take care of that great family of yours, buddy.
God, thank you. God bless both of you. I miss you. Hey, I got to say this as you let me go. I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys. You guys are doing a great job. And I listen and I watch both. And John, thank you for taking care of Angel. It's been great to see her kind of help out. You guys have done such a great job. You're making me want to leave my house and come down and watch the game in person. Seriously,
come on down.
I appreciate what you guys are doing. I'm gonna come sit right in front of you with a mask.
Come on down.
Like old times, man. You used to sit right over my shoulder up there in the perch. Hey, thanks for the kind words, Andre. Appreciate it.
You got it, guys.
Take care, man.
All right. Always great to have him on. I like the story about his little ones. We had when Tristan was moved, when Tristan went to the Celtics, we had a very similar school. The Tristan Thompson shirt was on that night, and it was not.
It's a hard lesson to teach.
Yeah, the 4-year-old, he did well, but it was some dicey moments trying to explain that one to him. So always great to catch up with Andre. And again, Indians right around the corner. Not right around the corner, but, in a couple of weeks, pitchers and catchers.
I'm excited for Bieber and also Tristan McKenzie. He looks like – he reminds me of Oil Can Boy. Remember him with the Red Sox?
What is it, like 6-something, 140 pounds, right? So great having Andre on.
Yes.
Good luck to the Indians moving forward. All right, we'll be back to wrap things up on CavsHQ right after this. We're back to wrap things up on CavsHQ. The upcoming stretch, a tricky one for the Cavaliers. Brooklyn Nets come to town. James Harden as a member of the Nets. Taurean Prince and Jared Allen will take on their former team. A back-to-back set on Wednesday and Friday. Then how about a true back-to-back at Boston, home against LeBron James and the LA Lakers?
We face back-to-backs as of right now, the first team in the East and the best team in the league, the first team in the West, the Lakers. So it's a tough stretch, a tough back-to-back for sure.
And the Nets have looked pretty good over the last couple of games with the Durant and Harden duo. That'll do it for us on Cavs HQ. Thanks to our great guests, future Hall of Famer Joe Thomas, Andre Knott. He's a Hall of Famer.
For sure.
Yeah, some kind of Hall of Fame.
We'll find out a hole, but we'll put him in the hole.
I think he is in the St. Mary Hall of Fame, if I'm not mistaken.
Is it?
So thanks to Andre. Thanks to Rafa. I'm John. See you next time on Cavs HQ. Adios.